A lot of people are thinking, wait a minute, Alex, there can't be a new world order. There can't be a conspiracy. Mankind, simple human brains cannot be this organized. Man cannot keep a secret. Therefore, the naysayers, the skeptics say, there cannot be a global conspiracy. But again, those naysayers, those skeptics are basing their assumptions on the fact that it is a human conspiracy. And I have my doubts, and Jack also has his doubts. Over the last 30 years, an outstanding author and researcher named Zecharia Sitchin, a name that many of you are familiar with, has written a total of 9 books which describe a race of ancient beings that came to Earth about 450,000 years ago. These books go into great detail about these beings and their activities on Earth. Sitchin's books are based on ancient tablets found in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, by the way. Isn't that a little bit interesting? The lands of the Garden of Eden described in the Bible. The Grandest Deception is a book that is based on Sitchin's work and the Bible. It describes how the ancient tablets and the Bible are related to current events. The Grandest Deception describes how the earth was created and how mankind was created. It also describes the conditions that mankind will face during the New World Order, as well as the fate of mankind if we continue down the path that we are presently on. Dr. Jack Pruett, calling in from Texas tonight, is a physician, still to this day, who lives in Southeast Texas. He runs a small medical clinic in a rural area near Houston. He spent many years studying the Bible, the works of Zecharia Sitchin, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and various scriptures of a religious or spiritual nature. The conclusions that he's reached that are described in The Grandest Deception are his own. They do not represent the opinions of Zecharia Sitchin or anyone else. Dr. Pruett, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you, Alex.
You know, and I'm still working on finishing your book. I'm halfway through it. Where would you like to begin with this? Or rather, at what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to put together a book consolidating this very interesting information?
I actually started working on the book, trying to write the book about 2 years ago. And after a few months, I had to put it down. I just couldn't believe that the conclusions that I was coming to and the evidence that I was finding could possibly be true. And so I put it away for several months, and then I actually decided around the 1st of December of last year to go ahead and write the book because, in my opinion, the evidence was just so overwhelming that I couldn't deny it any longer.
You mentioned several texts that you have researched over the years to come to these conclusions. It's also the frequently asked question, where does this alternative information about our true origins of mankind actually come from? What texts have you studied that you cite in this book next to like the Sumerian tablets, for example, in the Bible?
Actually, I have to give credit for the study and research concerning the Annunaki to Mr. Sitchin. He spent about 30 years studying and doing the research. I actually spent about 20 years, I understand, over in Iraq and various parts of Mesopotamia doing archaeological digs. And he actually dug up a lot of these old tablets, and there are literally now thousands and thousands of them. And he did an amazing job for the last 30 years. And when I read his first book, I did it simply out of curiosity. I happened to hear him on a radio talk show one night, and it sounded interesting, so I read his first book, or the first book of his that I read was The 12th Planet. That piqued my interest, and I had been studying the Bible very intently for years. And I began to put two and two together, so to speak, and my belief today is that the Bible is not a story about God. It's a story about the Anunnaki, who called themselves gods, and they revealed a great deal to us in the Bible about themselves, about their plans for mankind, and their plan for the fate of mankind. And so my book is primarily about the Bible more than the Anunnaki, in my opinion. I just, like I said, put two and two together, and I believe that the stories in the Bible are basically stories about the Anunnaki and their plans for mankind. There is an old text that's about 4,500 years old that is an Akkadian text called the Epic Creation, and that's where the information comes about the creation of the earth.
And according to your research, when was the earth created?
Well, according to my research, about 4.5 billion years ago. That also coincides very accurately with our best science today. And that's one of the things that began to pique my curiosity early on about the Bible. I am a medical doctor and having a scientific education, the very first verse in both the Christian and Hebrew Bible say, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth." Well, our best science today tells us that our universe was created 16.5, 17 billion years ago, but the earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. And so my first question was, well, what does it mean in the beginning? Does in the beginning mean when the universe was created, or does it mean when the earth was created? And then I kind of took it from there.
You know, for those listening that are new to this information, one of the most fascinating parts of the Bible is the creationism story, which clearly seems to parallel the Sumerian tablets and their description of the first man as well, Adamu. Brief us on this creationism story in both the Bible and the Sumerian texts.
Well, they're very, very similar. The tablets that are now called by scholars the creation epic are actually 7 tablets. Kind of coincides with the Bible's 7 days of creation. The difference is, of course, that the creation epic goes into great detail about exactly what took place during the early days of our solar system and explains how the earth was created. And these tablets that contain this information are approximately 7,000 years old. And so another question that I immediately had once I read this was, how could these people, the Anunnaki, know in such great detail how the earth in our solar system was formed unless they were eyewitnesses to the events? And so my belief is that the Anunnaki were present during the creation of the earth on Nibiru, their home planet. And actually Nibiru, of course, if you read the creation epic, was the planet that was involved hitting another planet that was called Tiamat in the Sumerian tablets, splitting Tiamat, and approximately half of that planet became the earth, and the rest of it that was broken off became the asteroid belt. And in fact, in the Hebrew Bible, the first sentence says, "In the beginning God created the hammered out bracelet and the earth." Well, the hammered out bracelet is the asteroid belt, which is the asteroids that are between Mars and Jupiter. And our best science today is beginning to verify these facts that we find in this old tablet, and are very consistent with what Sitchin had to say about those tablets.
And why do you think the Anunnaki came to Earth?
Well, according to the old tablets, there was actually a dispute on Nibiru, had been a dispute over the kingship of Nibiru, and I don't think that I have relayed this information to you, but the man who was supposed to become king was named Anshargal, Anshargal, or Anshargal. He was actually, did not receive the kingship that was rightly his because another man named Alalu, A-L-A-L-U, somehow, and I don't know the details how this took place, but he became king of Nibiru, and he then made a man named Anu, A-N-U, his cupbearer, which was kind of a royal position, his first in command and his head guy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Then Alalu served as king for approximately 9 or 10 Nibirian years, which would be their years 3,600 of ours. So he served a long time, but finally Anu defeated him in a coup d'etat and deposed him. Alalu ended up on Earth, and he apparently was aware that the Anunnaki were in search of gold. According to Sitchin, they wanted gold to disperse gold flakes into their atmosphere because their atmosphere was deteriorating. And so Alalu sent word back to Nibiru that there was gold on Earth. Anu then sent one of his sons named Enki to Earth to search for and mine for gold. He spent about 28,000 years here cleaning the place up. He arrived during an ice age. Conditions were extremely harsh at that time. Began mining for gold, and then his half-brother named Enlil was sent, and Enlil was actually the one who was in charge of the operation all of the time. But he came to Earth, and these two half-brothers had been involved in a family feud, actually back on Nibiru for a long time before they ever even came to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that feud continued. And that feud, family feud, about which one of these half-brothers was going to become heir to the kingship of Nibiru once Anu died, is largely what our Bible is about. It's about this family feud between these two half-brothers. But they came initially 450,000 years ago looking for gold. Then there was actually a mutiny. The Anunnaki who were doing the gold mining, and by the way, we've found mine shafts in Africa that, according to our best science, date over 200,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is good evidence that someone was here mining for gold over 200,000 years ago. But the workers decided that the work was just too difficult, and they just stopped working and refused to work anymore. Excuse me. And that's when Enki came up with the idea that they needed to form a slave. Mm-hmm. to do the work in the gold mines. And the old tablets go into great detail that is very, very convincing, according, again, to our best science today, how they formed mankind to be the slave to work in the mine.
Well, that's a very important point, because there are a lot of people in our society that have, some could say, turned away from the true God because of what they've read about in the Old Testament. And so because there is this perception of a very angry, punishing, evil, controlling, manipulative God, it's amazing how many people believe that that potentially is the true story, or the true God, rather. And I find it very unfortunate that some people that feel that they are disenfranchised humans, I'm amazed more people don't question what they've been told.
Well, I think that that's one of the problems that many people have about the Bible, that there's so many contradictions in it. For instance, and we're told that God is love, that He created mankind, and that He loves all of us. Yet, we're also told that He is vengeful, He's angry, He's going to punish us, He's going to do all these things. We're told that if someone strikes us, we're to turn our other cheek, we're to love our enemies. Yet, we also find that the God of the Bible tells Joshua to go into the Promised Land and kill every man, woman, and child.
Sure, it appears that the God of the Bible is the one that introduced racism to our society. There are the chosen people and the Gentiles are the non-chosen people.
And I don't know if you have children, but I do, and I mentioned this in my book. If I told one of my children that he or she was my favorite and my chosen one, that would do nothing other than guarantee that my children would be angry at me and hostile toward each other for all of their lives.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
And I cannot believe that any loving God or any loving father of any kind would do that to his children. We're also told that God tells us that we are to be perfect just like Him, yet we're told again that He's vengeful, that He's jealous. You know, jealousy is a character flaw, in my opinion. So, am I supposed to be jealous and angry and vengeful like the God of the Bible?
You know, Jack...
The truth is that Yahweh, or God spoken of in the Bible, is not God. That's the Anunnaki.
And, you know, what really gets me thinking, and many others, is that, well, throughout history, we have seen human societies worship deities because they appeared to be more powerful than man, therefore interpreted as gods, written in these books and coveted by the establishment to be passed down to the sheeple and the masses to worship a system that claims that they are aligned with this not so godly force. And so for those that are new to this information, we should be questioning some of these discrepancies. Absolutely.
Absolutely. There is some very interesting tablets, part of this family feud between these two half-brothers, Enki and Enlil. Some of the ancient tablets go into great detail about a meeting that they had, not only themselves, but many of the other more powerful Anunnaki were in attendance. Enki was convinced that it was fine that they created mankind to be slaves, and that they could have us do whatever kind of work they wanted done. But he was pretty adamant that mankind should not be manipulated concerning their spirituality. Enlil decided that they could control mankind much better if they not only had them work for them as slaves, but also if they deceived them into worshiping them as gods. And that's Enlil became the dominant half-brother and in control, and that's exactly what he decided to do. He decided to deceive mankind into believing that the Anunnaki were God, or Yahweh, so that we would not only work for them, but we would worship them.
Now, in your book, you talk about Enki and the potential that this is the equivalent of Lucifer in the Bible.
The person referred to as the devil, Satan, Lucifer, in the Bible, I believe without a doubt, is this half-brother Enki, because basically the Bible was either written by Enlil, or Enlil had the Bible written to say what he wanted it to say. And of course, in his mind, this half-brother of his is the devil or Satan, or the worst guy who could possibly be alive. And so, although Enki in our Bible is depicted as Satan and depicted as someone we should have nothing to do with whatsoever, that's far from the truth. He was actually the one responsible for creating mankind. He was also the one responsible for saving us at the flood. Enlil decided that mankind had become, in his own words, too noisy and boisterous, and he wanted mankind eliminated. Enki was the one who gave the information to Noah about how to build a submarine, or the Sumerian name was Zeusudra, and he saved mankind.
And what's interesting about the story of Noah is right around that time period, according to the Bible, there was massive genetic engineering experiments going on Earth, following these stories from Genesis about the gods mating with earth women in a very sexual manner. We see these different forms of life now popping up on Earth. And this is, we are limited on time, but to segue to kind of where we are right now, it's interesting, Jack, because we're seeing this resurgence of the creation of chimeras, genetic tampering with this biological code. It's causing many people to be suspicious that there is a parallel between what happened then and potentially what we're looking at in the coming years.
I have no doubt that their genetic engineering experiment is continuing, and basically they're manipulating our genetics, dumbing us down. Their goal and their plan is to turn mankind into a biological robot who would just work for them, but have basically no emotions, no feelings, no joy, no sadness. They would, I believe, allow those robots to live long lifespans like they do, but it would be a miserable existence, in my opinion. But we see evidence all over our world today of this genetic engineering experiment that's going on. Being a doctor, I actually did obstetrics and gynecology for about 20 years, and you know, we've always had this dispute between the creationists and the evolutionists, but I believe that if you really look at evolution, that is kind of God's way or nature's way of improving all living organisms. We talk about natural selection, survival of the fittest. Well, according to evolution, mankind should be becoming healthier, living longer, being improved. But what we see today is new diseases, new problems with our health of all sorts of things. I think I mentioned in the book things like Alzheimer's disease and all different types of cancers and things that we see, those things would never have occurred, in my opinion, if evolution had been allowed just to take place and to occur. Of course, we wouldn't be here today either, probably yet. We wouldn't have gotten this far advanced, certainly. But because the Anunnaki are manipulating our genetics and dumbing us down and planning on eliminating mankind almost from the face of this earth eventually, they've not allowed that to happen. Our pharmaceutical companies are being involved. They're putting all kind of things in our atmosphere, in our food, in our water. And I think everyone would, whether they agree with the other conclusions or not, would agree that our earth is being contaminated and manipulated in such a way that it's not healthy for mankind.
That's true. But because of all of the things that they're doing right now, as you cited, genetic engineering, genetic tampering, they're building up this global police state. We have a DNA database in the sky, apparently. All these nations are sharing genetic codes. Now, it raises the question, why the hurry? If they're all powerful, if they think they're gods, and they've got us under their thumb, what are they in such a hurry for? Do you think there's something that has the extraterrestrial establishment worried about the future? And if so, does this connect in any way, do you think, with this whole 2012 thing many people are looking at right now?
As far as why they're in a hurry, I believe that one reason that they're in a little bit of a hurry is that in spite of all that's happened to mankind over the years, they've kept us constantly at war with each other, they've had us kill each other on and on and on, which is all part of this family feud, really. But by the same token, we have advanced a great deal. Our technology is such that if allowed, we're going to be in space doing some interstellar space travel before too much longer. We're very, very close in our genetic experiments, mankind's genetic experiments, into creating much, much longer lifespans for mankind. And I think that they're a little bit concerned that they don't want us to advance too much further, or else we may be able to compete with them. The other thing is, I think that they have planned certain things from thousands and thousands of years ago, and this New World Order is kind of the culmination of accumulating not only all of the gold on Earth, but all of the wealth on Earth as well. And in my opinion, the head of, or leader of the New World Order that they're going to bring back and put in charge of that is who our Bible calls Jesus. Our Bible talks about how he's going to rule with an iron rod, talks about how every nation on earth is going to have to bring their wealth and give it to him every year, and all of the horrible atrocities that he is going to impose on mankind. Well, if they're going to set that New World Order up, I believe it's going to occur before the end of this century. And I heard something just earlier this week, maybe you can confirm this, about, I haven't been able to verify it yet, but there are things on the internet about 3 large objects from space that are heading towards the Earth and that are supposed to be here about mid-December of next year, which is going to coincide very closely with December 21st, 2012. These 3 large objects, it appears at the moment, are probably 3 very, very large asteroids. And I don't know, but I've given some thought to that, whether that is not just a prelude. You know, when we created our atomic bombs and our nuclear bombs, we tested them first before we actually dropped them on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I think this may well be a test. I think these asteroids may hit the Earth somewhere mid-December of next year, which would coincide with the Mayan thing. That's not going to destroy the Earth, I don't think. I don't think that's going to be the end of the world. There's too much in our Bible that is talked about is going to happen after December 21st, 2012. But I'm very interested personally to try to find out more about these three huge objects that are apparently headed our direction.
Oh, yeah, and I just read just the headline earlier before you came on about NASA detecting some sort of a supernova explosion, the largest they have ever seen. And then we're also seeing more reports about comets slamming directly into the sun and following. These videos are on YouTube. It's from the SOHO satellite. It causing a coronal mass ejection. These massive comets that are hitting the sun. So it's all very, very interesting. I wonder how these extraterrestrials are interacting with the sun or the solar wind. I find that to be interesting. There are others that have speculated that during solar maximum is when we see the most UFO sightings, leading some to speculate that perhaps when the magnetic field is weakened and we're getting more solar activity, perhaps there might be interdimensional activity coming back and forth between this the dimensions.
Well, that's certainly quite possible. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever that they are able to control our weather here on Earth. They're the ones who are causing all these crazy weather patterns that we're seeing. And I don't know the reason for all of it, but I do believe without a doubt that they can do that. Our own Bible verifies that and talks about how they're going to not let it rain here, and they're going to cause a drought there, and they're going to cause an earthquake here and an earthquake there. So they have the technology to do that.
Sure. You know, there's another thing also that I find to be very interesting. And we see on videotape all of these different world misleaders, also known as leaders and presidents: Gordon Brown, George Bush Sr., Jr., Barack Obama, Sarkozy. The list goes on, calling for a global syndicate, a new world order. Rockefeller, Rothschild. But in this conspiracy that obviously spans multiple centuries and generations, I don't believe, Jack, we've ever seen, from a human that is, a full, and that includes Mr. Albert Pike, a full-on explanation on why they want this type of system of control. All that I've been able to see are people calling for it, working for it, being very organized, being very focused, using mind control, using propaganda, but never really any document being released on the web that says, but this is what it's really all about. And that detail, or lack of a detail, raises very, very important questions.
My honest opinion is that they don't know why. I think they're being deceived too. Who we call the establishment and these world leaders that you're talking about, I don't think they really understand what the Anunnaki are up to. The Anunnaki are simply using them to create the situation on Earth that they want created. But I don't know. I would love to be able to have an honest conversation with one of the families of the so-called establishment or world leaders or the people you just mentioned, and find out what they actually do know. But I don't think they really know what's going on.
Yeah. I also want to note for the audience that you're not predicting the end of the world tomorrow. In fact, you're looking a little bit farther down the road as these events climax, in fact, much past 2012.
I think Jesus will return somewhere around 2100, possibly sooner. One of the things that I wonder about December 21st, 2012, is whether that may be what our Bible talks about, the 70th week of sevens in the book of Daniel. Daniel talks about 69 weeks of seven have already been completed, and then there's going to be this 7-year period that the Bible calls the tribulation. I think it's quite possible that that may be the beginning of those 7 years. But we'll see. But no, that's not going to be the end of the world. I think the big, huge natural disaster that's going to occur on Earth again, that's going to almost eliminate mankind, is going to occur with the next return of Nibiru and a huge asteroid shower that's going to hit the Earth at that time, and that will occur somewhere around 3400 A.D.
We're going to have you over for about 5 more minutes. I will extend an offer if you, and I've never done this before, if you would like to join me next week, because we clearly did not scratch the surface, you are welcome to do so. We could do a part 1, part 2. But where would you like to kind of wrap this interview up in the 4 minutes that we have with you, which is not a lot of time? Where do you kind of conclude the book towards the end?
I added a part 2 to the book, and part 2 of the book is called The Grandest Rebellion. I personally believe that it is extremely important that mankind be educated and understand what's taking place, or else the fate of mankind is going to not be pretty. And so my hope is that we can educate enough people and that we can put enough people together. I don't know the answer to the problem. They're so much smarter than us, so much more powerful than us, so much wealthier than us. I don't know the answer to that. But I do believe that the one thing that mankind has in our favor is that we far, far outnumber them. And I believe that if we could form a group of people, human beings, who understand the truth and would put their heads together and try to come up with a solution, I honestly believe we could alter the fate of mankind.
Sure, and one thing that I think about a lot is, what is true human nature? What is our true nature? And what does the word human really mean? And then we will look at the root definition of human. We realize that's not really truly the spiritual being that's inside these fleshly earth spacesuits. And so when rape comes up, the discussion of it, people go, why does man act so insane? These insane wars taking place. What is it in man that causes this very destructive behavior? But when we look at these so-called gods, they don't seem very godly at all. As you say in the book, they fought screwed and they died just like human beings. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about in my own life as spiritual practice, how can I break free from the codes of the matrix? How can I break free from the limited perceptions of the human body, of the five-sense reality? What exists out there beyond this realm of the flesh that's even more real than this perceived real reality, which in fact is very much an illusion. It's very much vibrating matter. It's very much a reality with thought, the root of it, creating the whole thing. And so I find it very interesting, that whole question, what is it, our true nature beyond the fleshly human body?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, much of that spiritual knowledge was present here on Earth at one time, but the Anunnaki hid it or deceived us, and so mankind today has very little true spiritual knowledge about what our true spiritual nature is. I'm like you, I'd love to know more.